Imagine a nation where freedom crumbles, not because of enemies abroad, but because we've quietly removed the very foundations that built it. The Founding Fathers didn't just declare independence, they knew liberty rests on three unbreakable pillars: religion, morality, and knowledge. Yet today, thanks to a misunderstood phrase and Supreme Court rulings, we've scrubbed them from our schools and public life. The result? Declining virtue, civic ignorance, and eroding rights. In this video, we dive into how we got here and, more importantly, how we restore these pillars before it's too late. If you care about America's future, stick around. This could change how you see education, governance, and liberty forever. The American Republic was founded on principles drawn from the Enlightenment, rooted in the eternal truths of sound religion, particularly Christianity, and tempered by reason and logic. The Declaration of Independence proclaims that governments exist to secure inalienable rights endowed by a creator, including the freedom to worship and believe as one chooses, provided such practices do not infringe upon others' rights. Yet, a profound misunderstanding of Thomas Jefferson's phrase, a wall of separation between church and state, particularly following the Supreme Court's 1947 Jefferson v. Board of Education ruling, has led to policies that exclude religion from public life, especially in education. This misinterpretation threatens the foundation of good government and the cultivation of a virtuous citizenry, undermining the natural rights the founders sought to protect. By removing religion, morality, and foundational knowledge from public schools, administrators, however well-intentioned, contribute to the decline of civic virtue and the erosion of liberty. This essay argues that religion, morality, and knowledge are indispensable for good government and human happiness, as the founders intended, and calls for a renewed commitment to these principles in education to restore the Republic's moral and intellectual vitality. The Founding Fathers believed that a free society required a citizenry grounded in religion, morality, and knowledge. This conviction is evident in foundational documents and the writings of key figures like George Washington, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson. The Northwest Ordinance of 1787 explicitly states, religion, morality, and knowledge being necessary to good government and the happiness of mankind, schools and the means of education shall forever be encouraged. The deliberate order, religion first, followed by morality and knowledge, reflects the founders' belief that faith underpins ethical behavior and intellectual growth, which together sustain a free republic. George Washington, in his farewell address, warned,
"Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. Reason and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principle."
John Adams reinforced this, stating,
"Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other."
These leaders saw religion not as a state-imposed dogma, but as a source of moral restraint and civic virtue essential for self-governance. As Stephen Mansfield notes, the founders believed that the matters of justice, of right and wrong, that government guards are defined by faith, and that individual character, rooted in faith, restrains societal evil. The Declaration of Independence, with its references to nature's God, creator, and supreme judge of the world, embeds these principles in the nation's founding ethos. Similarly, the Massachusetts Constitution of 1780 acknowledges the great legislator of the universe, reflecting a cultural reliance on divine providence. Even the California State Constitution's preamble expresses gratitude to Almighty God for our freedom, underscoring the enduring link between faith and liberty. These documents demonstrate that the founders saw religion as integral to the social fabric, not as an institution to be banished from public life. The phrase separation of church and state originates not from the Constitution, but from Jefferson's 1802 letter to the Danbury Baptist Association, where he wrote, "The legitimate powers of government reach actions only, and not opinions, thus building a wall of separation between church and state." Jefferson's intent was to assure the Baptists that the federal government would not establish a national religion or interfere with their worship, aligning with the First Amendment's prohibition on laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. As Mansfield clarifies, Jefferson and his contemporaries feared a centralized state-enforced religion, not the presence of religious principles in public life. Indeed, states were permitted to support religion as their citizens saw fit, reflecting the flexibility of American federalism. However, the 1947 Everson decision reinterpreted Jefferson's phrase to prohibit government from aiding religion in any form, a sharp departure from the founders' vision. The court's reliance on 7 words from a letter written 14 years after the First Amendment, and by a man absent from its drafting, distorted the amendment's original intent. This ruling birthed a strict separation doctrine that has fueled efforts to remove religious symbols, prayers, and instruction from public spaces, particularly schools. Justice William O. Douglas later acknowledged, "We are a religious people whose institutions presuppose a supreme being," highlighting the incongruity of this shift. The exclusion of religion from public schools, driven by this misinterpretation, has profound consequences for natural rights and civic education. The founders viewed education as a means to cultivate virtuous, informed citizens capable of self-governance. As Jefferson wrote,
"If a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and never will be."
Washington urged the general diffusion of knowledge to enlighten public opinion, while Madison declared,
"A well-instructed people alone can be permanently a free people."
These leaders saw education as inseparable from morality, which they believed stemmed from religious principles. Yet modern public schools, adhering to the Everson precedent, prioritize secular knowledge over moral and religious instruction, reversing the Northwest Ordinance's hierarchy. This shift has led to declining civic understanding and rising behavioral issues as schools neglect the moral formation that once underpinned American education. By excluding religion, schools inadvertently promote a secular ideology that fails to foster the virtue necessary for good government. As Franklin warned,
"Only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters."
this secular turn also infringes on natural rights. The First Amendment protects the free exercise of religion, which includes sharing one's beliefs in civil discourse. When school administrators suppress religious expression under the guise of separation, they violate students' rights to discuss moral and religious ideas that promote civic virtue. The California Constitution, for instance, guarantees the free exercise and enjoyment of religion and mandates the promotion of intellectual, scientific, moral, and agricultural improvement. By ignoring these mandates, administrators undermine the very liberties they are tasked with securing. School administrators who enforce strict separation policies often believe they are upholding constitutional principles. However, good intentions based on misinformation can lead to harmful outcomes. As the adage goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. By adhering to a flawed interpretation of Jefferson's words, administrators contribute to a system that deprives students of the moral and intellectual tools needed for self-governance. This is not to condemn their motives, but to highlight the need for a corrected understanding of the founders' intent. The founders' vision for education, as outlined in my Substack article, Educating a Free People, the Founding Fathers' Vision for Knowledge, Virtue, and Liberty, emphasizes the cultivation of virtue and knowledge through local control, not federal mandates. Noah Webster argued,
"The Christian religion is the most important and one of the first things in which all children ought to be instructed."
While Benjamin Rush contended,
"The only means of establishing and perpetuating our republican forms of government is the universal education of our youth in the principles of Christianity."
These views underscore the role of religion in shaping moral citizens, a role public schools have largely abandoned. To restore the Republic's foundation, Americans must reclaim the founders' vision by reintroducing religion, morality, and knowledge into public education and discourse. This does not mean establishing a state religion, an outcome the founders explicitly opposed, but fostering an environment where religious and moral ideas can be freely discussed. As Jefferson's 1779 bill for establishing religious freedom asserts, truth is great and will prevail if left to herself. Free argument and debate are her natural weapons. Schools should encourage such debates, teaching students to engage with religious principles critically and respectfully. Practical steps include: number 1, revising curricula. Incorporate the study of religious influences on American history, including the role of Christian principles in the Reformation, Enlightenment, and abolition movements. Number 2, protecting free exercise. Ensure students and teachers can express religious beliefs without fear of censorship, provided they respect others' rights. Number 3, training administrators. Educate school leaders on the founders' intent and the legal protections for religious expression under the First Amendment and state constitutions. Number 4, community engagement. Encourage parents and local communities to advocate for moral and civic education, reflecting the founders' preference for local control. By embracing these measures, schools can fulfill the Northwest Ordinance's mandate to promote religion, morality, and knowledge for the sake of good government and human happiness. The founders crafted a republic where religion, morality, and knowledge were indispensable to good government and a virtuous citizenry. The misinterpretation of Jefferson's wall of separation has led to policies that exclude these pillars from public education, eroding natural rights and civic virtue. School administrators, though well-meaning, contribute to this decline by enforcing a secular framework that contradicts the founders' vision. It is time to correct this error by restoring open discourse on religion and morality in schools, ensuring that future generations are equipped to sustain liberty. As Washington warned,
"In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism, who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness."
Let us honor our heritage by rebuilding the foundation of a free and virtuous society. That's how we restore the pillars of liberty, by reclaiming religion, morality, and knowledge as the founders intended, not as tools of division, but as the bedrock of a virtuous, self-governing republic. If this resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss future deep dives like this. Drop a comment below. What do you think is the biggest threat to liberty today, and how do we fight back? I read every one. For more thoughtful articles published daily on history, liberty, education, governance, and a wide variety of topics, head over to my Substack. The link is in the description. Join the conversation there and stay informed. Thanks for watching. Let's rebuild a free and virtuous society together. I'll see you in the next video. God bless and take care.